Mr. Scott Reyburn, the most electrifying man in B2B marketing, thank you so much for joining me here today. Can you tell us who you are and about your background? Who are you and what do you do?
Scott Rayburn, am a content marketing professional. I've been in marketing for over about 12 years at this point, mostly in content marketing and in B2B ad tech, particularly in companies that are doing more sales-led B2B marketing, less so SaaS-led. I've built content programs from the ground up and led content marketing strategy at least three different companies that have gone on to either be valued at $1 billion or have been acquired and sold for $1 billion. As you mentioned, I think everyone in marketing is trying to come up with their own little moniker. So mine is not to crib from The Rock, but I guess steal from him. I do like to say that like he's the most electrifying man in entertainment. I'm the most electrifying man in marketing.
Hell yeah, if it ain't broke, right? Excellent. Well, Mr. Electrifying Man, I got some questions for you, and I appreciate you hopping on and taking the time. Starting off, what do most vendor side marketing teams, like the ones that you've worked on, as you've mentioned, primarily in ad tech, what do they get wrong when they are trying to sell to specifically marketing leaders, right? Because those are the folks that you have been creating content for, as you said, right, over a decade. What are most of the folks in that realm who are trying to sell to marketers? What are they getting wrong, in your opinion?
It's a great question. What I've kind of learned over the years is, as you said, at the industry that I'm in, we're selling to advertisers of mobile apps and mobile games, i.e., they call themselves like mobile marketers and mobile marketing professionals. And we are, and myself as a marketer, one of the biggest things I learned is like, I have to think on how my own filter and receptiveness to seeing content from other vendors. It's a bit crass to say, but marketers smell bullshit more than anyone else. And if you are a marketer, you also inherently know that yourself. So that's kind of like always the prism that I'm looking through when I'm thinking about the strategy that we're going to go with, the type of content that we're going to put out, especially that's content marketing. Yes, there's product marketing that is a little more on the salesy end, but when we're talking about like purely thought leadership and content marketing, I'm thinking about how can we make stuff that is uh, not going to be perceived as this is just a bunch of BS, but this is something that is going to provide some sort of utility and actionable information for me, provide something that is going to make them better at their job. I like to say just like make them more badass at their job. Like that's always like the thing with anyone that you're trying to reach in any audience that you're trying to reach for content marketing, but particularly if you're looking at like marketers, they're constantly trying to do like how can I think I can do better at my job. So if we can be the ones that provide some content to make them do better at their job, then I think that is going to be the way we're going to be able to reach and quote unquote kind of sell to them.
Totally. I liked what you said there, right? I think I can remember probably the moment when I switched over, like from marketing, switching over from the moment I realized that bullshit doesn't fly in marketing. I think marketers have to figure out the faster they figure that out, the better off they're going to be. Do you remember that moment for you
Absolutely.
when, like, it came crashing down? I can't just pump word count and, actually, win here. What was that like for you?
Probably the moment when you're a junior marketer and you're kind of told by your marketing team not to like you should go rogue as the content marketer on the marketing team, but when you're getting the directive to potentially add some more salesy information or kind of steer off the path of like doing content that has some sort of like actual value for the end reader, then you start to get into some not good territory where that content you're kind of just like creating content for the sake of creating content. And since a marketer is your marketing audience is probably going to see that this is just worthless, then they're just going to move on from it. We are in a time where attention is probably your most valuable currency. I always like to say that like the company you're working for, the products or services that it sells, like that's like, people pay money for those products or services. But I say like for content marketing, our currency and like what people pay for is their time and attention that they're giving to our content. Yeah, if you're doing stuff that's just like not useful at all, then a marketer is just going to straight bounce from it.
Do you have, and maybe not, but like, do you have the quickest way to figure out if what you're working on is bullshit and content for content's sake, as you say? Like, is there a quick litmus test any marketer can ask or apply to figure out, like, do I really need to be doing this? Is this going to actually do anything?
That's a really good question. I don't know if there's like a qualitative way that you can kind of assess, like it meets some certain checklist of a criteria. But the things that I'm always just looking for is content that you're creating is providing real utility, has like some form of actual information. That's kind of like always like the baseline. Is this is something that someone can possibly do something with it? The end audience, whether, like I said, like they'll learn something that will make them look good at their job and
Totally.
do better at their job. And something that just like, if I'm reading it, I don't want it to sound like it's all theory and like no practice to it. So I want to see like some form of like there's something talking about the practice
Yeah.
of
No,
whatever the topic that you're talking about. That's when I kind of see like, is there something like useful that comes out of this? That's kind of like the couple at least like criteria. Again, like that doesn't come from a like checklist, but it does come from experience and as a marketer, and then just like knowing your audience inside and out almost as much as anyone at your company, even as much as like the most knowledgeable person at your company, whether that's even like the CEO. I think your content marketer, it's a tough job, and I think it's tough because like you need to have a intimate understanding of your audience as much as like your head of sales or even like people in your C-suite.
totally. Right. Know thy customer. We always try and use this thing. What, after reading this piece of content, could someone do within 20 minutes differently than what they did before, right? But if we
Yep,
try and make sure there's at
that's
least
cool.
one thing in there that's like, what's one thing they could immediately do right now after reading this piece of content that would not take more than 20 minutes, right? Whether that's writing an email to their head of IT, or if that's, putting a prompt into ChatGPT, or if it's
I love
adjusting a
that.
budget, or if it's like creating a doc template, something that's like concrete, right? Because as you say, right, time and attention are coin of the realm right now. Speaking of good content, you worked on the Liftoff Mobile Heroes series, right? I think widely regarded as one of the highest quality, most successful content series in the B2B ad tech space. Can you tell us a little bit about how that performed and why you think it had the impact that it did?
Yeah. So for about over 3 years, at my time at Liftoff, I was at a company called Vungle that merged with Liftoff. So for about a year there, I wasn't working on Mobile Heroes at that point, but for once the company merger happened, I was working on Mobile Heroes. So yeah, since I started there, I was a key part of content development and content direction for that community led program. Fortunately, at least for me, it perfectly lined up with the style of content marketing that I've been doing almost my entire career. When I started, at least back at a company called Chartboost in about late 2014, early 2015, I started to adopt this style of content where it was almost taking like a journalistic style approach where the strategy I implemented was we are going to try and inject as much subject matter expertise into our content to enhance like the topics that we're talking about. Again, like I was talking about earlier, like marketers don't can smell your BS and and as part of that, no one cares what I have to say or if like the byline is from Scott Reyburn. They want to hear these marketers in the industry that I was in, particularly mobile marketing, and I think this is almost true for any industry. They want to hear from their other peers, whether they recognize the name or not. But even just like seeing information from their peers is something that just has higher value in their mind. Uh, that type of content is like yes, harder to do and takes more like time and effort, and doesn't necessarily always can be cranked out as quickly as like just doing some researching something and writing it out. But this is like doing the researching, writing on some particular topic, and then going and trying to find subject matter experts that we can enhance this article. So I've been doing that style of like content for, I guess, yeah, a decade at this point. So when I joined at Liftoff and I saw that they had this Mobile Heroes program, a program that I was running similarly at Chartboost and at Fiber and now at Liftoff. And Liftoff had been doing this type of program for at least like many years at this point by the time I joined, where I was, of course, changing jobs. But I was able to come in and see how great they were able to do it at such a consistent basis. And I just wanted to come in and see, just make my little mark and see if I can at least like enhance it even further. Like I said, just doing that interview, speaking to subject matter expert style of content. Interviewing is a learned skill. It's something that you have to practice. It's something that is like, there's craft to it. So you don't just come in with like some set of 10 questions and then just kind of go from there. You have to be able to conduct an interview beforehand where you come up even with even better like questions catered towards the subject matter expert, but also during the interview being able to come up with those impromptu questions to probe a little further and what I like to call like peel back the onion and go into like further detail once you kind of then hear the answer from the person you're speaking to. So that was something that I kind of brought to that Mobile Heroes program, was definitely from the heroes that we were doing content with, enhancing the interviews we were having with them with better questions and doing more, adding more impromptu questions like during the interview to try and get like even more deeper insights and deeper knowledge out of them. And yeah, so basically like why it worked so well is, kind of exactly what I was mentioning. It's the marketers in this industry want to hear from other marketers. What we did was put through the name itself, Mobile Heroes, which is kind of like a cool little name, but calling someone like a hero. And the way I always like position is like, we're putting this person up on a pedestal. So that person that we're interviewing gets like all the nice, good feels inside their belly that they're being featured. And so by doing that, those people, the subject matter experts, are like, they feel good about us, and we're building a lot of like equity with them and brand relationship with them. And then our audience is seeing these people we're propping up as like heroes of the industry, and they have insights that you can kind of like learn from. And one of the things that was kind of cool to learn, I can't go into like specific full on metrics, but um, a lot of like over the history of revenue that was generated by Liftoff, there is a correlation that we found that people that we featured as mobile heroes and eventually did go on to either become customers or already were customers spent more with our product by an exceptional amount.
I believe it for sure. No, that makes sense. So, I mean, to that point, everything you're saying makes total sense anecdotally. We did a survey and it's on the way. Backs it up. The data finds, right? We surveyed B2B decision makers, found that 79% are actually more likely to buy from vendors who publish content in which they interview their peers, right? People who are in the same role or similar roles as themselves, because that's who they want to listen to. That's who they trust. Makes total sense, right? Why they have nothing to gain. They're sharing their expertise. There is literally no one better you could get information from than the people that do your job at a professional level, especially if that company's higher, bigger market cap, whatever, someone that you could look up to. Do you think that at large, the B2B market has caught on and is using this type of content strategy appropriately, or are they under leveraging it? And if so, where do you think what's the fastest way that other B2B marketers could start applying this strategy, that basic, core conceit that's who your customers want to listen to? How can they start applying that like today?
Definitely think it's something that is under leveraged in the content marketing industry. It is under leveraged for a variety of reasons. As I sort of spoke about earlier, it is more labor intensive than just creating a blog post where you're researching, you as the marketer, and going and researching a topic or talking to some people internally at your company and getting the information that you need to put out some sort of a blog post or other piece of content. So accomplishing this type of content is certainly not speedy, but one thing is, especially in this age of AI, is I think there's a lot of things that AI is already unproofing, but I believe that this type of content is AI proof. It cannot be replicated because this type of content, you're talking to a unique individual, a real person, and AI can never give a unique perspective that is Evan's perspective, for example, on anything. Maybe AI will get there someday. I hope that dystopian future never comes, but that's kind of like where I see that like you should think about this type of content, not only for all of the reasons which I've spoken about earlier, but almost for the fact that it's something that AI can't really copy in some way. One thing I've learned is how to like execute this type of content within within your company is don't try to do it all by yourself as like the marketer who's trying to prop up this type of program or the marketing team. You're trying to get these subject matter experts, whether they're customers or not, to do content with you. So it's making use of your sales teams and building relationships with your sales team. These people on their sales teams, they have their Rolodexes of contacts that they've built over the years. And some of those people, once you start going through their Rolodexes, there could be a lot of potential people that you can be featuring with such content. I always just like to say, like, your job as a marketer is to be like almost to be like the mafia consigliere, where you want to build the strategy and plan for like how you're going to do such like subject matter expert type driven content, but you want to become an advisor to the sales team on how they can execute the process, because you're going to need them in order to get to the point where they've convinced their person they know on the Rolodex to eventually do, hey, would you like to speak with someone on our content marketing team about doing some sort of content with us, about sharing your expertise and insights. So that's something that I think has been very beneficial, is you got to become very ingrained in getting to know your sales team and building those relationships with them if you truly want to execute such content, because they're going to be one of the biggest barriers to be able to speak with your customers, or even like they're not your customers, but there's someone who you think is an influential person in that industry that the audience you're trying to target.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. No, I remember that, being a junior marketer and being scared of the sales team, right? Like, I was intimidated and never really put the time in to talk to them. But the second you do, right, so much opens up. You just get a way better picture of who your customer is. They're talking to them every day. So you get those insights fed back to you, right? Invaluable bit of social capital to cultivate anywhere, for sure. So as part of that same survey, we found that 83% of B2B buyers, decision makers, said they were more likely to consume other marketing content that was more sales forward, stuff like thought leadership or product marketing or case studies, after they had consumed community content that actually featured their peers. It turns out that is a really effective way of telegraphing to your target market that you understand their needs, which was, according to survey data, the single biggest thing buyers look for in a company's marketing materials. Does this vendor understand my needs? Have you seen any effective ways of incorporating community content projects like, the Mobile Heroes series into buyer journeys that result in more effective conversion paths, right? Lower friction, journeys from being a stranger to being a customer?
Absolutely. Yeah. One of the like always end goals that I think about with marketing is, at the end of the day, success to me is like, if we ask this person who's just as a prospect of that we want as a customer, if we ask them like, who would be the top 3 companies that you would think of and qualify for your needs, if they say X, Y, and then Z is your company, that is like you have effectively entered their mind space and mind share. And I think that is like almost the biggest victory that you can have as marketing, is that you're always kind of in that top 3 buyers consideration buying set for whatever particular product or service that you're selling, and whatever that audience product service that they're looking for. So yeah, I lift off with like the Mobile Heroes program. Let's take that for an example. Liftoff was in an industry where, in the mobile ad tech space, that there's not much differentiation between each of the, let's say, advertising platforms that are out there. Like, yes, you have the Googles and Metas of the world that they're just better for the sake of that they're just so much more larger and gargantuan than a company like Liftoff. However, at the kind of second tier of companies, there's not much differentiation between them. You can act like there is some sort of differentiation, but sometimes it's not, there's not that much. Like, yes, there's like product and feature differences, but sometimes it always just comes down to, is this A or B or C ad platform performing better than the other? So one way to kind of convince someone, prospective customer, to consider us and put us in that top 3 consideration set is through content, and is through like something like Mobile Heroes. One of the biggest projects I led was I took our Mobile Heroes kind of website, which is like the home base for all of the Mobile Heroes content. It used to be on a separate website. So we had the lift off separation of church and state, tried to create Mobile Heroes as like this separate entity that lived away from Liftoff. What I did was basically refresh the entire Liftoff or Mobile Heroes kind of program, the look and feel of it, the branding of it, and nest it inside of the main Liftoff website and feature Mobile Heroes as almost like a product or feature that we sell, but not sell for money, but we sell it for like attention. So if you go to Liftoff website, at least as of now, you'll see that like you can see the products, solutions that they have, and then you'll see Mobile Heroes right there in the top navigation of the website. So it is like I made that strategic decision as like people are going to come to our website to not only vet us for the product and just like double check that like, yeah, Liftoff's product has all the same check marks as the other companies in their same kind of tier of companies that aren't the Googles and Metas of the world. What's this Mobile Heroes thing? And you go and check this out. And then that's kind of like, oh wow, these people really know the topics and like things that I'm interested in and learning about. And that is almost like a selling point in and of itself. And one thing that like started to do more to use that type of content, almost that was almost like top of funnel, like people seeing the website, people seeing Mobile Heroes featured on the website as like and engaging with the content, was started to think more strategically about the Mobile Heroes that we were featuring. Not necessarily would still feature like anyone that we thought is someone that is worth featuring and has cool insights to share with the mobile audience, but also like work with our sales teams and kind of think about like who from particular industries or people that you on sales is having difficulty like speaking with them or trying to get meetings with them. So the wedge that we kind of thought of was to feature them as like a mobile hero, and that in actually quite a few instances was the turning point, and that was the wedge that was effective in cracking the door open and getting the conversation started with them. Was the person was receptive to be a mobile hero, and then further along they moved down the sales cycle and some ended up becoming customers.
So I think you just dropped 2 nuggets of pure gold there. That's awesome. So I can echo that back because I think that's like those are your key takeaways. You and I were talking about before this, right? Like, what makes for a good piece of content, right? It's like something they can do immediately, actually. So you just said one. Like, I remember that. I remember going on the Liftoff website before you and I ever knew each other back in the day and seeing the Mobile Heroes nav item in your website navigation bar, right? And it had this really nice hover animation, take you to the series. And the first thing you see are the faces of your peers. That was a really compelling experience, right? And, just thinking about that purely mechanically, right? From the services, like the number I just gave you, right? 79% of buyers are more likely to buy from vendors who publish content featuring their peers. If you had a
Totally.
magic freaking wand, and if their eyeballs hit this page, suddenly they're 79% more likely to buy from you. Like, why wouldn't you put that top level on your website nav? And it was a pattern breaker, right? From like, if I'm a buyer trying to figure out which DSP I'm going to use, I'm looking at all these sites and it's like, all right, product solution, feature, product solution, feature, product solution,
Totally.
mobile heroes. What the fuck is that? Right. Like that's, in the meta of, B2B vendor sourcing, having that break it and then have that next step actually make you quantitatively more likely to buy. I think that was a galaxy brain move. That was awesome. That's, so key takeaway, right? If you're going to do this thing, if you're going to invest in community content, which you absolutely should, give it a high visibility place. Don't just post it on social, right? Look at your Google Analytics, look at your homepage traffic and get as much of it flow in there as you can.
One of your biggest digital assets amongst your digital footprint as a company. And I built the case for it. And, I was very adamant that if the effort that we put into basically rebuilding the whole Mobile Heroes website was that if we're going to do this, that needs to be a very prominent thing that is featured on the Liftoff website
Well,
alongside the, of course, products that they sell. So
yeah,
it was something
absolutely.
that I had conviction that would be the right thing to do and pushed
Well,
for it. And luckily, I think it's worked out fairly well.
how much did Liftoff sell for again? A couple billion?
Liftoff?
Billion and a bit?
I
I'm trying to give you
haven't,
credit for the sales, Scott's what I'm trying to set up
yeah.
here. Is I think at least 500 million of that could be directly attributed to Scott's decision to put the Mobile Heroes button on the top now. The other one you said, I think that is super great. Community engagement as a pipeline opener, right? Like if you've got a conversation that's stuck and has been for a long time, and I know many, mature RevOps setups will have, time spent at funnel stage as a metric, right? Get yourself a report that shows me all the deals that are stuck at a particular funnel stage. And, I'm trying not to use like a plunger toilet analogy, but it's the only one that's coming to mind right now is like get in there and find a buyer that you can interview and deploy, right? Like interview them, get talking to them, get them engaged, get the good feels flowing, and then see what happens. You said, right? There are measurable outcomes there. That's another solid approach, solid use of this. Another way that this type of content, or at least having this operationalized, pays dividends, right? Or could.
Yeah. It's just, if you think about it for a salesperson, you just pitch it to them as like, hey, this is another tactic in your toolkit to be able to push this conversation with the customer through all your other ways that you try and do it. I don't know all of them, not a sales expert, but all the other tactics that you do, whether it's like cold emailing people and inviting them out to expensive dinners, but this asking to just be like, hey, I think you're smart and I want to interview you and share your brilliance with the world. A lot of people are like, not to say narcissistic or self-centered or like, but yeah, they're like, they feel good. They're like, oh, yeah, sure. I think
I
I
mean,
have
it's
some cool things to say.
hell of a lever, right? And I mean, like, our thesis is always like, people could be very, well socialized and have a big community. How rare is it that you get to talk about the one thing you know more than 99.99% of people in the world about, at length, right? I know I freaking, jump at the opportunity, right? Just feels good to get that out there. So you're, capitalizing off that just sort of couple intrinsic sort of universal forces in people. No, makes sense. I got one more question for you before we button this up here. So in the mobile space, for example, right, there are people who I would call pundits, right? Might call them influencers. A lot of folks saying this is the age of the B2B influencer, you know, influencer community, whatever you want to call it, right? That sort of lever of having people in that space. How important is it for folks to align themselves, I say folks, companies to align themselves with what you might call like vendor agnostic pundits or influencers who have sort of built an audience for themselves outside of maybe the two-sided marketplace, and maybe they've worked on either side, but have sort of made a name for themselves as thought leaders. I think specifically of, Eric Sufer, who is, obviously a super respected voice in the mobile advertising world. You guys know each other. How much weight does, partnership or cooperation with those types of folks carry in your experience in the B2B marketing game?
Yeah, I think it at least can vary probably from different B2B industries. I can speak to most intelligently to the mobile industry, but also, I guess, broadly in general for all of B2B. I think influencer marketing, or I guess, like you said, however you want to call this type of
What do
marketing,
you think we
or
should call it? Community marketing or influencer marketing, B2B marketing? What's the handle we should use?
I don't know. I think as someone who's an avid like Twitch viewer, I think the kind of, I just call it like content creator marketing, I guess, or creator
Oh,
marketing. I just think of everyone just like, you're a content creator. Like
sure.
influencer sounds too stuffy now, and I think we've moved on from influencer to content creator or digital creator. I don't know if you've seen the Time magazine like top 100 that just came out, but I think they call them digital creators, something like that. It was like the top 100 digital creators. So it's all like independent individual people who are Twitch streamers or
Mm,
YouTubers,
mm,
etc. But yeah, at least like it, from what you see on how let's just say your unowned channels, like this social channels and the content that is going to be surfaced there, their algorithms are certainly right now geared towards showing content from individuals, and they are certainly depressing content that is being created by companies and company pages. For particularly talking about LinkedIn and B2B marketing, that's where you're going to have to probably think a little more outside of the box on working with people who are agnostic or just an industry content creator within the industry that you're operating in. Depending on the industry, some of those people can have pretty large followings or and then some form of like large influence. And those people can be another vector for you to work with them, whether that's getting their thoughts on content that you're creating, and the same way that you're injecting like journalistic style quotes from people in the industry. You can also kind of use these people to, hey, would you like to provide a quote for this report that I'm working on, or we're hosting this webinar, or speaking at an event engagement and doing a fireside chat or some sort of panel. Some of these content creators could be someone that is worth having on that panel or as part of like some of the content that you're creating.
Totally. No, makes total sense. Scott Reyburn, thank you so much for joining me today. It's been a pleasure talking to you. And where can the people find you if we want to send them somewhere? Should they be checking you out on LinkedIn, or you got a Twitch account that we should be looking at? Where can they go?
I think my 10 followers on Twitch can use a bit of a boost, but
10 more than I got.
I don't think I'm ready to grow my Twitch at this current point. But yeah, people can follow me on LinkedIn, and it's just at LinkedIn/my name, Scott Reyburn.
Okay. Thank you so much, Scott. We will talk to you later.
Thanks, Evan. Thanks for having me.
Bye.